right, if you could start making your way to your seats, we're going to get started in just a few seconds. All right, here we go. All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our 5,478th meeting of the Oakland Rotary Club. All right. I am Tom Limon, president of the Oakland Rotary Club. Founded in 1908, we are the third oldest Rotary Club in the world, with more than 36,000 Rotary Clubs in over 200 countries worldwide. Our club represents a diverse membership of almost 300 business, professional, and community leaders united to serve our local and international communities through a commitment to service above self. Shh. Thank you. Okay, our last meeting in the ballroom was 3 weeks ago, and past President Seth Butner was president for the day, and he really shined. Seth is in the back. Let's give it up for Seth. All right, Seth brought something back that I want to bring back, and that was the Rotary vision statement. So if you'd be kind enough to repeat it with me, if we could show it up on screen. The Rotary vision statement goes like this. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to celebrate, some change, and in ourselves. Okay, I stumbled on that one. All right. All right. Ed Jellin, is Ed in the room? Okay, do we have any visiting Rotarians today? Okay.
Well, Tom,
there we go.
I don't know, because Ed Jellin, the great judge Ed Jellin, is not here. Raise your hand if you're a visiting Rotarian. Then the answer is no. All right.
Okay. If you brought a guest today, please stand up. Okay, and I would like to start by, I brought a guest.
Right on, where are you?
Okay, he's with Wendy Howard. This is my cousin Mike Moreno. He's visiting
Wendy? Oh, Wendy.
From Oregon, the Bend, Oregon area. And his father was Sal Moreno, my uncle, and I'm his namesake. His father was the president of the Santa Barbara North Rotary Club in 72, 73. So please give a warm welcome to my cousin Mike. All right. All right, who's
John
up?
or Allie?
All right, go. Jason, take the lead.
Hi, I'm Allison Bliss, and I brought my friend, Chris Roberts, today, who's one of our grant recipients. She's the executive director of the Piedmont Yoga Community, which teaches yoga to people with disabilities. And why don't you tell us if that grant helped you?
Absolutely. We actually use the grant for our teacher training workshops that we do once a year, and we use the funds to help with the planning and the promotion of the workshop, which we just held this past month in March. We had a great turnout. People are so excited, and they're going to be mentoring with our trained teachers to learn how to teach people with severe disabilities. So thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome.
Don't get excited, Dave. I see you, Dave. But
Thank you. My guest today is the wonderful TK teacher, Alicia Simba, who you'll be hearing from later today.
All right, welcome, welcome.
President Tom, fellow Rotarians and guests, I'm David Stein with Donahue Fitzgerald, and it's my pleasure today to introduce Rudy Gonzalez. Rudy is just relocated here to work with the Golden Gate Area Council of the Boy Scouts of America, where he's in the finance group. And his connection to Rotary goes back to when he was a little kid in scouting in the Rotary Club down in the Houston area where he grew up, or South Texas where he grew up, sponsored his troop so that he could have a uniform when he went to camp. So please give a warm welcome to Rudy Gonzalez.
All right, welcome, Rudy.
Amber has a guest.
Thank you. Amber Childress, and my guest today is Danielle Adams.
In addition to being a good friend of mine, she's an executive consultant with San Francisco Achievers, which is a scholarship organization. She's the founder of a nonprofit that serves middle school students, and also the CEO of a startup app. Danielle.
Welcome, welcome.
And it's her first Rotary meeting.
All right, welcome, Danielle. All right, do we have any other guests? Okay. So Barbara Berry has been traveling the world. She will provide us with a thought for the day and also share a few minutes about her adventures. So please welcome Barbara Berry.
Thank you, President Tom. My thought for the day relates to my experience of Rotary friendship and hospitality that I will share with you shortly. Maya Angelou wrote, "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." So speaking of friendship and in the spirit of Rotary generosity, I have several gifts from my trip for President Tom and dedicated Christy, unfortunately she couldn't be here today. So there's some Colombian coffee and a semi-pata hat, and also some Bolivian silver for Christy. Thank you. You're welcome. So, good afternoon. Our World Community Service Committee is committed to support the International Service Project in Colombia this year, Project Fair. So I went despite not knowing a soul. The whole experience was one of friendship and Rotary support of all kinds. The organizers of the pre-trip fair bent over backwards, helping me with a persnickety foreign country website. About 20 of us gathered in Armenia, Colombia, mostly Canadians who had been coming for many years and doing projects locally for many years, but who welcomed me into their group with open arms. We also met wonderful people as we toured Rotary projects. Then at the fair, I met people whose names I knew, but whom I had not yet met, whom we worked with in projects, World Community Service projects. They welcomed me like old friends. Even when I got COVID and was isolated in my room, my roommate's reaction was far from shunning me. In fact, they compassionately commiserated and brought me meals and took away my dirty dishes. I recovered well enough to attend the rest of the trip on an island in the Caribbean called San Andres. By then, our Rotary group was one big family. I'm so impressed with their dedication to Rotary and commitment to doing meaningful projects. It's exhilarating to be among Rotarians who use their expertise, their networks, and their influence, excuse me, to advance project goals. And rewarding to be such a Rotarian. Excuse me. I have brought back 2 out of the 49 projects from the Colombian Project Fair to present to the World Community Service Committee to consider funding. And I'm excited to say that I was discussing an HPV potential project at the Boga Hospital in Colombia. So please join me next year in the Project Fair in Medellin, Colombia, from January 30 to February 1, 2025. My next trip was to Bolivia to facilitate a global grant to eliminate cervical cancer by testing for HPV and treating positive cases. More women die of cervical cancer, in Bolivia than any other country, than any other country in South America. So here we are, Rotarians, doing something about it. Oakland number 3 is part of the first 5 collaboration of clubs. The first 5 clubs are Chicago, San Francisco, Oakland, Seattle, and Los Angeles. And we're collaborating to work in Bolivia on the HPV project. And what's great is that cervical cancer is the most preventable cancer. All you have to do is test for HPV and treat it in a timely manner. So the main purpose of my trip was to help them move from the cash pilot project to a global grant, which they're not familiar with doing, so I went to help them. Talk about Rotary hospitality. First, in Santa Cruz, Bolivia, the district governor, Livio Zozzoli, and his wife, active Rotarian Sylvia Zerda, invited us, meaning two from the Chicago Club, Marga Hugo, who is the very active Rotarian wife of John Hugo, who is the CEO of Rotary, and also Shada Calderwood, who is the president-elect of Chicago, and me, to stay in their gorgeous home, glass and marble and a beautiful atrium where we had dinner outside in the lovely, balmy, tropical weather. Livio drove us to their vacation home in Semaipata, where we lunched with the 5 Rotarians of this small town, which is a rural hub with 39 different nationalities. We visited the new hospital that they were building, where the new X-ray machine would be installed for better telemedicine. Semaipata is also the site of an ancient Incan ruin that we toured. We also hiked up to an ancient indigenous forest of century-old tree ferns. To be in these tree ferns was like being with ancient beings. It was phenomenal. Second, we flew to Cochabamba. Cochabamba is where we were met by a delegation of Rotarians bringing us bouquets of flowers, and our lovely hotel was 50% discounted. We were feted at a Rotary 119th birthday celebration, and we toured a number of completed projects, and I'm so excited that there is a retired gynecological oncology surgeon who met with me twice there, and since I got home on Zoom, to hopefully start an HPV project in Cochabamba. Third, when we flew into Sucre, we also had a very welcoming delegation, and they initiated starting a cancer project. There are 5 clubs with our club, so we'll see what happens. In closing, I invite you to share some of this Rotary hospitality. In September, I'm organizing a trip to Nepal and India to visit the projects, the many projects that we have done there, and to meet our friends in person. And also, I'm very excited to say that I'm working now on an HPV project in Mexico, in Baja Norte and Sud. I'm so excited. Sorry. And I invite you to join us on a Rotary trip, October 17 through 21. So please do let me know if you're interested in any of these 3 trips, and I'll keep you posted. Thank you.
Absolutely. Microphone, please. Yep.
I'd like to ring the bell for Barbara Berry, who tends to be a little emotional at times, but her passion has completed global grants in India, Nepal, Colombia, Mexico, and I know I'm missing a few. So her emotion has led to passion that's making a difference in the world. So thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, Barbara. And to our guests, a bell ring is a generous $100 tax-deductible donation to our Oakland Rotary Endowment. And, you know, one thing I've learned recently is Rotary International is taking what they've learned from their eradicating polio. They're taking the lessons learned from that to eradicate HPV and cervical cancer. So thank you, Barbara, for your work. And Barbara also sent me a picture from Japan. She's been all over the world in the past 6 months, so there's a great picture of a sumo wrestler. I'll try to pull it up sometime. All right, today we have the distinct privilege of inducting 2 new members to our Rotary Club. Amber Childress will be introduced by Keith Uriarte, and Peter Kozlowski, also known as Kaz, will be introduced by our President-elect, Shannon Hackley. Come on up.
President Tom, fellow Rotarians and guests, for those of you who don't already know Amber Childress, and to most of you who do know her, it is my pleasure to introduce Amber as our newest Oakland Rotarian. Amber, a second-generation Oakland native, has a long, proven dedication to serving our community. She is the Regional Director of External Affairs at Aspire Public Schools. Previously, she was the Chief of Staff for Oakland City Council member Ramasha Drawn. Amber was elected member of the Alameda County Board of Education, fulfilling her childhood dream of representing East Oakland community. She has served as a board member or volunteer on numerous nonprofits, including Wardrobe for Opportunity, Girls, Inc. of Alameda County, which in 2016 earned her the Jefferson Award. Children Rising, and where we were last week, Chabot Space Center, and the Center for Elder Independence. Most recently, she was appointed to the board of the Oakland Roots and Soul Club. Amber is the proud mother of Jay, affectionately known as. She has a personal passion. This past fall, Amber attended a workshop in Tuscany, and she is working on a book loosely based on her maternal grandparents. President Tom, fellow Rotarians and guests, please welcome Rotary's newest member and my friend, Amber Childress.
Same time? Welcome, Amber. Wonderful. So I am very excited to invite Kaz to his first meeting in this Rotary Club. He found us through Eventbrite and went to the business development meeting at Johnstown Supply and joined the club because of all these fabulous Rotarians that he met, and he's never even been here. So this is his first meeting and his first time to meet many of you. So please, Kaz, I asked for 2 interesting facts, right? He's set foot on every continent except Antarctica, and he's worked and lived on 4 separate continents. He also has a VR startup called how do you say it? Colubri, and he'll tell you all about that on his 3-minute introduction. He also does some real estate investment in his hometown of St. Louis, Missouri. So please welcome our newest member. And Kaz, his name's Kaz. Come on.
Let's take a photo. No. Right here? No, I'll give it to you. Stand over here. We'll take a photo.
Don't mind us, everybody. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to do it again. I'll do it one more time while I'm here. Keep it in one stone right there. Welcome to the club, you people.
All right, that wasn't creepy at all, Jason. That's all right. So I'm going to give you your new red badge. Okay, so your new red badge signifies you as a new member of our club. In your bags, you'll receive a 4-way test which guides Rotarians in their daily lives as follows. Help me out here. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? You will receive our Rotary Made Easy handbook, which provides you useful information about our club, and a club directory with 300 of your newest best friends. You got that? 300? 300. Also included is your Rotary pin and our new club pin, so wear it proudly. And with this pin, you can attend any Rotary club in the world. So when you travel to Tuscany or wherever, visit a Rotary club. It's a really awesome experience. Your commitment as a new member is to attend meetings, participate in one or more committees, and contribute to both the Rotary Foundation and our impactful Oakland Rotary Endowment. It is my privilege and pleasure to induct you both as our newest members of the Oakland Rotary Club. Let's give Amber and Kaz another warm welcome. All right. Yes, sir.
Never.
Go ahead.
Chet Burgess found us on the, sorry. Speaking of new members, potential, Chet Burgess found us online, and he's a professional consultant, and he's here visiting us. Welcome, Chet.
All right, welcome. And also welcome to our guests online. I see Rick Baskin, I see Carrie Hamill, Linda Chu, Linda Bosenecker, Bob Barth is here. But anyways, welcome to our friends online. Coming up later this week, on Saturday, there's a district training assembly. What's? One more guest. One more guest, okay.
Who are we talking to?
Right, stand up.
Are you kidding? In this bow tie, you gotta stand up. Tom, have you seen this bow tie? Who are you, buddy?
I am here for Amber's induction ceremony, and I'm a friend of Keith. Well, apparently I did. I came from another...
She's going to be here for the rest of her life, so we're glad to have you. What's your name?
It's Shadeep.
Shadeep.
Yes.
Do you have a last name, or like Shadeep Dutta, everybody?
All right, welcome, Shadeep. Okay. So this Saturday we have a district training assembly in Fremont. It's from 9 to 2 p.m. In person, it's $25 to attend, but you can also attend on Zoom for free. They also offer 13 sessions over 6 evenings between April 8th and 16th, and so they cover a variety of topics that will be beneficial, especially if you're part of a committee that you're passionate about, or if you're a committee chair. So please look into this. And also we have a district conference April 26th through the 28th in San Jose. There will be celebrating Rotarians who have served for 20 years or more, and at the luncheon on Saturday, our DEI committee will be receiving an award, and also our very own Ed Jelen will be presented with a special award from Rotary International at the dinner on Saturday evening. So in honor of Ed Jelen, who isn't here today, but he will be here next week, we're going to do a champagne toast to Ed Jelen next Thursday at 11:30 for this commendation. Our We Care committee, they've done an incredible job this year, so thank you, Julie Fox, for chairing that. And so we have so Nuno, I thought your birthday was today. Not today. Okay, it's listed as today in our club, but Pam Clausen, I think you have a birthday, and we have an ugly hat for you. Ooh. Pam makes it look good. All right, well, let's sing happy birthday to all of our Rotarians this month. And Nuno will get your date right, but let's start. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rotarians. Happy birthday to you. All right, thank you. And thank you for the cake. Okay, we lost somebody recently, and Shannon will just briefly share some thoughts.
Great. One of our other past Rotarians, Dr. Carl Stuckey, sponsored Louise Roque. And Louise was a member in our club since 2001, so over 20 years, and she will be known as one of the most generous contributors to the Rotary Foundation and also to ORE. Their families hasn't scheduled any services for Louise. She was in the Alameda Club and then in our club and had a CPA business for years, and she was kind and generous and wanted us to have a moment of silence for Louise. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon, and thank you, Alex, for finding the photo of Louise. I just wanted to share very briefly, we're running a little behind schedule, but early last month I lost a good friend. He was a community and housing leader in the Bay Area, and he died at the young age of 48. He was the executive director of the Tenderloin Neighborhood Development Corporation, which is one of the largest affordable housing developers in San Francisco. And the last time I saw him was in this ballroom last July for my induction. So I would like to ring the bell to thank Ed Braille from Chapel of the Chimes and Mark Rosen for helping his family during this difficult time. And so if we could share the next slide. So what makes this sort of a Rotary moment is, you know, as a large club, we have lots of contacts just as being a part of this club. But this family didn't, they were just completely lost, and they needed help with the services. Ed Braille was incredible. He was so attentive. And, you know, they didn't have access to Maurilio's contacts. And so Mark Rosen was there within a day to help them with that, to help them unlock his computer and phone. So just really appreciative of our club. We have an upcoming mastermind. Jesse Schmidt, would you please share?
Thank you, President Tom. Rotarians and guests, we have an event coming up 1 week from today. It's being hosted at Laney College, and we have a slate of speakers. I'll be one of the speakers. We also have financial strategist Kathleen Uribe. We have President Dr. Rudy Besikoff, and we have President Lamone's wonderful wife, Christy Johnston-Lamone, who will be our cleanup hitter on that evening. The theme for this event is health, wealth, and happiness. We expect small business owners, entrepreneurs, and Laney College students to be there with us, and we would love to have Rotarians and your friends with us as well. So you'll see on the placards on your tables here, there's a QR code that will link you to the Eventbrite page. It's also on the Rotary calendar. Please RSVP in advance, and we hope to see you there.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Jesse. Okay, our Rotary funds, our endowment, we make a big impact locally. And so today, John Holmgren is going to introduce a special guest who will share how those funds have helped. John,
Thank you, President Tom. I think you're all aware that our club, through the Kinder Prep Committee, for many years has provided support for Oakland's charter and OUSD transitional kindergarten classrooms. This year, that support has taken the form of sponsoring field trips to Children's Fairyland and to the Oakland Zoo, and to providing gift cards for Lakeshore Learning so that teachers can purchase materials to supplement the educational experience in their classrooms. In past years, our support has included virtual learning kits at the inception of the pandemic to assist with virtual learning. It has consisted of a summer book program where we provided bundles of books for kids to share with their families in the summertime so that their learning could continue. And over the years, a number of us have served as classroom volunteers in TK classrooms. And this has all been a wonderful source of support for TK teachers, students, and their families. But rather than take my word for it, we are fortunate today to have the wonderful teacher at Prescott Elementary, Alicia Simba, to tell us what our support has meant to she and her students.
There we go. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you so much, firstly, to Mr. John. The kids are obsessed with him. As soon as he walks in the door, they just stop listening to me completely and just try to rush at him as fast as possible. So really wanted to just thank Mr. John and all the support that he's done in our class. The Rotary has done, the impact of the Rotary is seen in my classroom every day, from the toys that the kids play with, whether it's, I was able through a Lakeshore gift card to get the kids like a barber shop bag that they really love to play with. They like to shave each other and give each other haircuts. And also math manipulatives and whiteboard markers and other things that support their learning. The field trips have been phenomenal in terms of exposing both students and their families to the places that they've been. To the place that they live. Parents coming on the field trips have said they've never been to Fairyland, they've never been to the Oakland Zoo, and so it's a new experience that these are lifelong memories that kids are getting to have with their parents that they may not have otherwise had. And then again, in terms of learning, when we went to the zoo, the kids asked me, having a conversation, what animals do you want to see? They asked if cows were real, just because they had never seen a cow. And so thinking about students living in urban areas like Oakland, just not being exposed to, the great biodiversity in our world. And Fairyland is just great to run around in and to just be present at a Oakland sort of hallmark. And so I just really want to say I super duper appreciate all the support that you all have done. And more than myself, the kids and their families really appreciate that the work and support that you all have done. So just thank you very much.
And you still need volunteers? You still need volunteers? Okay, all right, what do you got, Jason?
Big
We
Dave,
got
Big
David
Dave's
Stein.
got something going on.
All right.
Big David Stein.
President Tom, I'd like to ring the bell for Ms. Simba. She's TK at Prescott Elementary, where I volunteered for a number of years, and after 1 hour a day working there, I needed a nap. So God bless you for doing it. It's a great school and a great group of kids. So
All right.
please ring the bell.
All right, thank you, Ms. Simba. Okay, we're going to have our speaker in just a minute. I just had one last announcement, and Peter, you could pull up the slide. So one of our incredible gala items did not sell recently, so we are offering it up to rebid next week. So check your calendars, mark them off. This is a one-bedroom villa in Kaanapali on the west coast of Maui, so please be here next week and bid generously. So Mr. Cedric Titus, if you could come up and introduce our speaker today.
Thank you, Tom. All right. Before I introduce Sonia, I just want to say that April 4th, 1968 was a sad day for America. He had been to the mountaintop. He had seen the promised land. His death brought about great change in my life, and for that I want to thank Martin Luther King. I'm proud to introduce to you today Sonia Francine Marie Diaz. She's the proud product of California Public Schools, the founding executive director of the UCLA Latino Policy and Politics. Sonia is a practicing civil rights attorney and a policy advisor. She received her JD from UC Berkeley School of Law, holds an MPP from UCLA's Luskin School of Public Affairs, and a BA in politics from Santa Cruz, UC Santa Cruz. And by the way, Sonia is my son's life partner, so Sonia is family. So with that, I'd like to introduce to you Sonia Francine Marie Diaz.
Thanks so much, Cedric. I appreciate that. Hi, everybody. I'm going to walk around, and we're going to have some slides up, and very excited to be here. Ultimately, what I'm going to be sharing with you is a bit of data. I founded a research center at UCLA about 7 years ago. It's called the Latino Policy and Politics Institute. And about 2 years ago, I started a project focused on gender. This was really imperative given a lot of the persistent inequities facing Latinas in the US, and that project is called the Latina Futures Lab. And if we could get the slides up, I'll go ahead and get started. Wonderful. Next slide. I'm going to be sharing a demographic profile of Latino eligible voters in the U.S. and take you through a story. Ultimately, part of the reason that I was here is Cedric and Tom wanted me to present a grounding, research-informed presentation on Cesar Chavez. Then, in terms of the research that I'm going to be sharing with you, I'm going to go over the growth of the electorate for Latino voters, some demographic characteristics, and some geographic characteristics. Next slide. Wonderful. What I took here is actually a portrait from the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery of Cesar Chavez. And I wanted to share that personally there is a connection. My mother was born in Eagle Pass, Texas, which was in the news a few weeks ago as a site of contention by both former president and a current president around the issue of immigration. My mother was a migrant farm worker. So my maternal side of my family would go to different jurisdictions based on what was in season and what work looked like, ultimately settling in Parlier. In the 1950s and 60s, my mom's side of the family was heavily involved in the United Farm Workers movement. Now, the UFW is an amalgamation of two unions at that time, one that was Mexican-American and the other that was Filipino-American. Ultimately, it became one of the most politically cohesive and important organizations for social mobility. In the work that I do now in terms of dealing with domestic policy at the local, state, and federal level, many elder, more mature leaders that identify as Mexican-American or Latino from the Southwest have roots in the union movement. And I myself have really understand the way in which the UFW, through Cesar Chavez's leadership and Dolores Huerta, allowed for a new and regenerative leadership ecosystem where women were allowed, permitted, and emboldened to lead. My mother at the age of 18 and 19 was a strike leader of someone who went on to become the head of the Labor Federation of Los Angeles County. And ultimately, I think one of the things of Cesar Chavez's legacy is understanding that there is a need to address discriminatory public policy that rendered farm workers invisible and ultimately really prohibited access to dignity. My mom would tell stories that at the age of 5, she was in the fields bringing water. And that was her job as a young child. Later on, picking nuts, fruits, boycotting grapes. She will not drink red wine to this day, but she will have some Chardonnay with ice. And I think it's just really an important part of American history, so I wanted to share that with you. Next slide. Wonderful. Next slide. So we're going to go into the growth of the Latino electorate. A lot has been made about Latino voters. I think that there's going to be an important part of this election. Some of the narratives, and frankly they're erroneous, about Latino voters somehow becoming more conservative. I want to just share that in terms of partisan preferences, the majority of Latino voters lean Democratic, and that's been the case and is going to be the case this November. That said, depending on the other major party ticket, it can ebb and flow. And when G.W. Bush was on the ticket, he got upwards of 40% of Latino voters' ballots in those presidential elections. Now, Trump has not come close to that, and we can, frankly, in the Q&A discuss a little bit more. It's very juicy. But what we're seeing right here is a huge growth in the Latino electorate. Now, one of the things underlining this growth is that Latinos are a growing population. That means that their birth rates are larger than their death rates. That's true of every major racial ethnic group in this country except for non-Hispanic whites. They have a declining population growth, and that will be the case now into the future. So come this November, there will be 36 million eligible voters. Those are voters that are US citizens and over the age of 18. Next slide. Wonderful. What does this mean, 36 million, in the totality of those that will be casting a ballot? Well, 15% of the electorate going into this November are going to be Latino, 15%. That's the largest racial ethnic voting kind of breakdown of eligible voters. That said, black female voters still have a higher share because of they are registered to vote and they are likely voters. So this is the potential if we have an inclusive, multiracial, multi-ethnic democracy. Next slide. One of the things that's really important in this is showing you a peak, and that peak is the peak of Latinos turning 18. That is the age that folks are permitted to vote because of constitutional amendments to this country that lowered the voting age during the Vietnam War. This peak growth will peak next year, and then it'll start a decline. But what you're seeing is that Latino demographic, the population in this country is very young. Their median age is markedly younger than non-Hispanic whites and the black Americans. And one of the really important facts is that 6 out of 10 Latinos in this country are millennial or younger. 6 out of 10. So that's a young population. They are in their most productive years now and well into the future. Next slide. Okay, geography. I think it's really important. We sometimes are in a coastal bubble, sometimes a regional one. I know when I'm up here, there's a lot of curious stares at me for being from Los Angeles, California, but I love the Bay Area. I want to talk about the country. Oftentimes when we talk about diverse populations, we think about them in major urban epicenters or large states with large populations. The truth of the matter is that Latino communities, diverse Latino communities in this country are in every single state, and some of the most profound growth over the last 10 years has occurred in Appalachia, has occurred in the Midwest and the US South. Next slide, please. Oh. Wonderful. So this figure is a map of eligible Latino voters in the US. The darker the color, the more Latinos. Every single state has Latinos. Some of the things that I think are really important here is that you see some states that are growing that maybe are, a darker blue but not the darkest. Look at Kansas and Oklahoma, looking at Georgia, North Carolina, and Virginia, and then obviously Tennessee and Louisiana. These are important states and important economies, all very different and distinct. And so what one might think about a Latino population being simply in a California, Texas, Florida, and New York is untrue. And it has not been true for decades. Next slide. Now, what is really important in terms of our political contest for the presidency is the Electoral College and the number of electoral votes in each state. Latinos and their sizable populations are in fact concentrated in states that are consequential for the outcome of a presidential election. California having the largest number of electoral votes, Texas, Florida, and New York, and then you have an important battleground state in Arizona. And so Colorado, I think, is markedly blue. It is no longer purple. But ultimately, this really gets you to the path of 270 electoral votes to win the presidency. Next slide. Wonderful. This is a really important fact that is consequential, especially in light of the Office of Management and Budget, which is the data office for the president, the executive office of the president. Last week, they came out with new guidelines of how to count race and ethnicity. And there's been a lot of talk about whether Latinos are a racial group or an ethnic group. We're an ethnic group. Oftentimes, when we've filled out the census, we have to identify a racial category. It could be white, it could be black, it could be indigenous, some of the Asian racial categories or other. For some Latinos, particularly those that identify as Mexican American or Chicano, it's very difficult because they see themselves as Latino or Mexican American and Chicano. Now there is just a combined question with race and ethnicity. That said, it's still really important to understand the dynamics and the diversity of Latino life in this country. And what this slide shows you is eligible voters by Latino descent group. What is a descent group? It could be Cuban American, it can be Honduran American, it can be Puerto Rican, who ultimately are enfranchised once they turn 18 to cast a ballot in federal elections. And so you see here that, the majority of eligible voters are indeed Mexican, close to 60%, but then it's followed by Puerto Rican. One of the things not on this slide is thinking about what subgroups are really increasing in their migration to the U.S. Mexican migration to the U.S. has been decreasing over the last 10 years. What we're seeing is a lot of Central Americans and Venezuelans because of the political climate. Next slide, please. Okay, demographic characteristics. So this is really important because oftentimes when we talk about a political campaign and we get into the media, college-educated voters, white female voters, poor voters, working class voters, you see all of that, but you don't see that segmentation for non-white voters, for Black Americans, Asian Americans, or Latino Americans. Yet that experience is not a monolith, it's very heterogeneous, and there are some key components to this that are driving electoral preferences. Next slide, please. Wonderful. So one of the things here, and I said this before in terms of eligible voters, remember, people that are going to cast a ballot, oftentimes we think of gender as a 50-50 game. There's a little discrepancy there, but what's important here is that there's more female eligible voters for all racial ethnic groups in the U.S. The other thing that I think is really important is that as it relates to minoritized communities, right, communities of color, racial ethnic minorities, at least in the case of Latinas and Black females, their registration and their participation in electoral contests is higher than their male peers. Next slide. Okay, so this is really important in terms of college education. How many people remember back in 2016, the need for Hillary to convince white female college-educated voters to vote for her? Did a majority of white college-educated female voters vote for Hillary Clinton? No, that's correct. And the majority did not vote for Biden in 2020, and we'll see what happens in 2024. But all to say is that there are many eligible voters, and the majority of them have some college education. So that is an AA, it could be a BA, it could also be postgraduate. But there are clear discrepancies with racial groups, and I apologize for how small these slides are. The top one is Latino, followed by non-Hispanic white, and then Asian American, and then Black. The green is some college. Ultimately, the blue is less than a high school diploma, and the red is high school diploma or GED. And what you see in terms of voter eligibility is that many of the eligible voters, again, have some college education. That's really important, and I think what you'll see is that it does change in terms of the proportions, particularly as it relates to Asian Americans. The majority of eligible voters have some college education, and again, with white voters, super majority there with that green line. But then it's different when it comes to Black and Latinos. Why does this matter? It's going to resonate your messages. Your political ability to mobilize people to turn out and cast a ballot is going to be based on their lived experiences. Whether or not you have a political agenda for a candidate or a campaign or a party that speaks to these people and motivates them. Next slide. Wonderful. So the majority, just bringing it back to California. And all of this data is coming from the UCLA Latino Data Hub. It's latinodataHub.org. And really simple, click and select, and it pumps out these beautiful graphs. And I know Cedric asked me if I did all of these graphs. I did, but I used the Data Hub, which does it for me. So this is a figure of eligible voters in California in 2021 compared by racial ethnic groups. The majority of eligible Latino and Asian or Pacific Islander voters are bilingual. That does not mean limited English proficient. That means proficient in English and another language. Really remarkable, really interesting about how you could potentially have cultural nuance to your messaging that is in a language of choice, or, you know, shows that you're taking care of them and you're centering them and you're taking the time to really communicate to them in the ways in which their fluency parallels. And ultimately, let's go to the next slide. So what are the implications of this? I want to give you 3 things to kind of take away based on this data. The first is that the growth of Latino voters, remember, they're not going to peak until 2025, but they're going to continue to be a huge positive voting bloc. Can we keep it on the slide? Thank you. Awesome. Campaigns, candidates, and parties are going to have to mobilize these new voters. Now, new voters are not the types of voters that American electoral politics cares about. Why? You have limited resources, and your goal is 50+1. You're going to base your calculus on the data that you have on a voting electorate for your contest. That data is going to be tied to those that cast a ballot. That is not new voters who have never cast a ballot or are infrequent voters. But if candidates or parties or causes identify the need to diversify an electorate, to think about sustainability, even looking at this club, really bringing in late 20-year-olds or 30-year-olds for a path forward, being in that community can really change elections. You can have power and you can go to victory with an inclusive, multiracial, multi-ethnic voter bloc, but it's going to require the need to take a risk and to spend resources on getting those newly eligible voters to cast a ballot. If you do, it'll pay dividends for elections to come. Second thing, not all voters are a monolith, and that's particularly true of voters of color. And so understanding their regional differences, their socioeconomic characteristics, and integrating those into a message that is both empowering but also creates enthusiasm to cast a ballot is going to be supremely important. We saw low voter turnout in the primaries. We do not know what's going to happen in November, but one likely thinks that it will be a continuation of what we saw this March. That's at the detriment of all of us, because it means that people are sitting out of our democracy because there are not issues or candidates that are speaking to them. Can I have the last slide again? There we go. Okay, let's just keep it here. The last thing is that campaigns need to be committed to early and sustained mobilization. This isn't an election and then an election. It's thinking about the ways in which you have cohesion. Cedric told me that you meet every week here. There's a place of belonging. You need to think about non-election contests as an implementation idea. Starting to gather data on those people that are aging into the electorate, identifying some of the trends so that you can have a really effective campaign, but also an important administration. And that requires investing in the research and the mobilization to understand the new electorate. Last slide. Okay, time for question and answer. Thank you so much for doing the slides.
Okay, I saw Lorna's hand up, and then,
I'm closest to the mic. I just want to ask really quickly, why is it going down after 2025?
Well, that is where Latinos hit the peak of a positive growth to 18. So as they hit the peak, then they start aging. So then you're no longer going into your younger. There's just so many young Latinos right now. As again, 6 out of 10 Latinos are millennial or younger. So you hit that 18 peak, there's still more Latino voters, but you're not going to get as high in terms of the numerosity as next year.
Thank you so much for your comments and coming to speak to us today. My question is, can you speak to the dichotomy between the fact that you've got the maximum number of 18-year-old voters in the Latino bloc, but you have 2 candidates for the presidency in 2024 who are about 80? It would seem that when we talk about them not participating in the voting process, they may not identify with somebody so old.
So I'd point to you precedent, and that precedent is the 2020 election, where the majority of Latinos who were even younger 4 years ago than they are today overwhelmingly supported a very old candidate in Senator Bernie Sanders. So it's not the age, it's the candidate, it's the enthusiasm, and it's the agenda, and it's whether or not they're incorporated into the process. What Senator Sanders did is he went into Latino communities as small as Coachella and Indio, or East LA. I'm sure he was out here in Oakland, and he integrated the staffing at the senior level to understand Latino communities, Latino voters to be able to have that nuanced messaging. It paid dividends in Nevada, Arizona, and California.
Okay, David Stein, and then Lois.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. I have way too many questions. I'll try and pick just like one. I guess two questions. One is, how does the abortion issue play given the religious? And secondly, swing states, Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, where do you see them?
Yeah, so, part of the reason that the United States Senate is in Democratic control is because of Latino voters and a coalition of voters led by black voters in Georgia with Latinos and Asian Americans. Latinos over the last few cycles have been single-handedly responsible for sending 2 Democratic U.S. senators from Arizona to the U.S. Senate, and now having a Democratic governor in Katie Hobbs. That's on the back of Latino voters who were in many ways politicized by anti-immigrant xenophobic policies like SB 1070 back in 2010 that wanted to criminalize being undocumented in that state. Now, immigration is not a single issue. It's not a top 5 issue for Latino voters right now going into this contest. Other things like the economy and health are. But for Arizonians, they've been really sophisticated in their advocacy and coalition building around issues. Criminal justice reform, a minimum wage. Going to Florida, where it seems like the Democrats have just completely retreated, there's a paradox there that I think is going to be really important and mindful. It used to be a blue state. Now it has gone the way of Republicans because of disinvestment. The Republican Party, that said, has integrated and recognized that their sustainability is predicated on incorporating conservative Latino voters. Even despite that, of the heads of constitutional office in that state, who I vehemently disagree with, there are still voters that majority of them have voted for very important things. The right to cast a ballot for those that were formerly incarcerated. Majority of Floridians voted for that at the same time that they sent Republicans to the U.S. Senate. Similarly, they voted for a minimum wage. So there's an issue dichotomy there between the candidates and the issues. To your point in terms of reproductive justice, I think it's a galvanizing issue for the Democratic Party. We did research at UCLA to study the real implications based on childbearing years. Now, I mentioned that non-Hispanic whites are a more mature, older demographic. That means that less of them are of childbearing years. And in fact, they're a declining demographic group. So why interject with the ability to reproduce? Who are you trying to, in many ways, corner? Those are youthful, diverse populations. And the states that are passing restrictive health measures are states with large and growing Latino populations, and those Latinos are in childbearing years. And so this very much is an issue.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sonia. And I see Allison and Lois. I'm sorry, we're running a little late. So Sonia, would you mind taking questions afterwards?
Thank you,
Okay.
Tom.
Let's give Sonia a round of applause. So Sonia, it is, thank you again for being here. I felt like I was taking a master's course right now. Thank you so much. It's customary for our club to make a donation in our guest speaker's name to a charity or cause, and this year my area focus has been around youth and parks and open space in Oakland. So we will be making a donation in your name to the Friends of Joaquin Miller Park, who strive to make the park more beautiful and accessible to the public while reducing the risk of wildfires. So thank you again. All right. And then our new members, if you can start making your way back. And also, we are doing something new about our meals. We are basically, let us know if you liked it or not. There's a cup in the back near the exit, and please vote on that. I would also like to thank Julie Fox and our We Care Committee for providing food and cake today. And also our AV committee, our fearless AV committee for handling today's lunch. Dr. Joel Parrott is not here, but next week we will be in the ballroom. We have a special guest speaker who will be talking about the urban forestry project. Peter, I noticed that there were some chats, or is there anything that we need to discuss on the chat? No, okay. Please bless your own tables, and thank you everyone for being here today. I really appreciate it. Thank you to our new members, and remember, Oakland Rotary is here for you. Thank you, and thank you, Barbara.